Hey there, ladies and gentlemen out there in internet land. This is your friend Charlie Hunter with a reasonably fine art talk. We've got an excellent presentation today. One of my favorite human beings, one of my favorite painters, the man, the legend, but we'll get on to him in a second. First off, a couple of housekeeping things. The copy of Richard Schmidt's Alla Prima that Sandy Bogstad has had since February, I believe. Sandy, your time's up. Time to pass it on to somebody else. You must sign it. You must inscribe it. But someone else out there in internet land who would really like to have the copy of Alla Prima for a month, just say so in the comments, and I'll choose someone, and then I'll have Sandy get in touch with you. Sandy will send it on to you. You have to agree to do the color charts, and then you have to agree to send it on to the next person in a month or two, okay? And I believe that's all the housekeeping we have to do right now. Charbonneau the cat has arrived just to join us for a bit. Come here, Charbo. Nope, he's just gonna sit over there. Anyway, our guest today, a wonderful painter from the leafy verdant area around Atlanta, Newnan, Georgia. Painter I first met at Forgotten Coast and who I channel every time I'm painting back alleys. The most excellent David Boyd. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me, Uncle Charles.
Well, it's a joy to have you here. What's been happening in Boyd land of late?
Gosh, not much. My world kind of revolves around stealing away moments to paint, and you've met my children, so you know what I do with the rest of my waking moments.
Right, and now it looks like you are in your subterranean studio.
That is correct. I'm deep underground here in Newnan off the Court Square.
Yeah, now let's talk a little about that. Oh, actually, first I'm going to put up on the big screen. I'm going to put up the picture of the preternaturally attractive Boyd family. Because I've spoken about it. This was at Appalach this year during Forgotten Coast. David and his wonderful wife Julie and their preternaturally attractive children. Aaliyah, is it Aaliyah?
And we call her Isla. So we gave her a name that would confuse everyone who ever met her, especially her teachers, for the rest of her life. So her name is spelled A-I-L-A, and we pronounce it Isla.
And it means like light or something, right?
Yeah, we say it means bringer of the chaos.
Bringer of the chaos.
I think it's Gaelic.
David Jr. But
he's actually number 3. You know, we do that down here in the deep south.
Oh, right. Yeah. You're number 2.
Yeah, I'm number 2. Dad's number 1.
The children have cornflower blue eyes. They smile engagingly, and then they act chaotic.
They do.
With the Boyd family there are our beloved hosts at Forgotten Coast, Pigeon Bill Goldbach. And this was at a dinner that we had. So anyway, I'll get rid of that, and we'll go back to our big mugs for a second while we chat. So Betty Sue is sort of around, as you can see. Betty Sue, ladies and gentlemen, is on tour with James McMurtry and driving from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Columbus, Ohio today. Has pulled over to some rest stop and is hard at work in the background, setting up some of the crawls, the captions down at the bottom. Thank you for being here, Betty Sue. We really appreciate your taking a moment. So, David, you are the son of a noted Southern cartoonist who does Just Foxworthy's, or did Just Foxworthy's graphics and stuff. Talk a little about how you came to be David Boyd that we know and love.
Yeah, I kind of grew up, with some art in the family. Dad was he was an editorial cartoonist, and he quit the Army to do that, and then in the 90s he kind of got the Jeff Foxworthy gig, like in 1991 when I was a senior in high school. So that was really cool to be able to have, that book was everybody's got a copy,
Right.
from here to upstate, to Washington. It's unbelievable. But he had a printing business in order to syndicate his cartoons. So I kind of grew up in down here in this basement is actually where his printing business used to be. This was the dark room. And so I kind of grew up in a printing business that was kind of an art business. And my mom was a teacher, so there was always paper around and pencils. And I love to draw. That was my entryway into this world.
Right. Well, that's funny. I'd forgotten that. When we first met at Forgotten Coast, we had that conversation that we both grew up as the sons of printers.
That's right. That's right.
It really does inform the way you, as a child, just solving the problems of the world by drawing. It just stays with you that's how we process stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charbonneau is, of course, insistent on.
That's a beautiful cat.
Oh, he's a good guy, Joe. Anyway, so then you, when I first met you, you were just going full-time into art. You had been a teacher, an art teacher, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, 19 years, middle school, high school art teacher.
And what made you leap into doing paint?
I would say my addiction to cigarettes led me to quitting smoking, and then that led to, I have a lot of time on my hands.
Interesting.
And I was teaching, and I was helping other people with their art, but I wasn't really doing any of my own art, and I think that had been missing, all along. I went into teaching right after I got out of college because I thought I'd never get another job that wasn't painting houses. And so that just having some time on my hands and wanting to do something for myself led me to painting.
And that was, I think, 2016 is when we first met. So you've now been doing this full time as a painter for getting on 6-8 years. How's it going? How's this gig working out?
It works out great. I mean, it's unbelievable to be able to do what you want to do every single day.
Right.
And I have to pinch myself, having, had a real job that I had to dress up for and go to every day. Just not having to do that is incredible. As long as I can stay, focused and disciplined, everything is great. We've got a gallery upstairs. So, I rotate some artists through there, and we do some teaching, and, I'll try to sell some paintings.
Right. Right. And how are they selling? How are they selling these days?
We started out pretty well. Usually right after Christmas is when I really see a sharp fall off, in retail, get a lot of commissions before Christmas. I do a lot of commissions. Painting nitty gritty alley scenes is a surefire way not to sell a lot of paintings.
Right.
Sometimes I got to figure out a way how to sell paintings every now and again.
Right. Well, that as I believe we have also talked about. My mother always used to say, Charles, why do you paint those horrible things? Why don't you paint things people want to buy? But it's what we're interested in.
Yeah, I can't not paint that stuff. It's what I want to do and what I enjoy painting. And I got to get it out. I got to get it out.
Let's take a little tour through some of your work.
Yes.
So, as I said, this is the preternaturally attractive Boyd family. We're just David gave me about a half dozen slides, and we're just going to go through the slideshow and talk about each one, and I'll blather a little, and David will blather a little. Tell us the story of this one, David.
Well, this one's interesting. This was a building that's here in Newnan, RD Call.
I'm sorry, the cat just sat on the painting.
Everybody's a critic. Everybody's a critic. Okay. Next slide, please.
Exactly. Okay, it's a building here in Newnan.
Yeah, well, it is no more. They just tore it down. It was the RD Cole Manufacturing Company. They used to make a lot of metal stuff, in the late 1800s and put things on trains. But, the buildings sat vacant for a long time. And this was based on a plein air painting that I was doing maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And when I was packing up my gear, that guy walked across the field, and I was like, oh, there's my painting right there. So I took a photo of him walking through, and then literally, because of COVID, I had a lot of time on my hands to kind of go through my old photos, and I found this one, in a stack. And when I had some time to myself, it was one of the first paintings I did when the world started to crack back open and I had a little bit more time. So that one's important to me because that building's gone.
That's one of the interesting aspects of our little niche of the painting world, is it does have that kind of almost journalistic.
Yes.
It's recording a scene. I mean, you can draw an antecedent, I suppose, to the Ashcan school.
Yes.
But we're not making overtly political statements, but there's an implied politics with what we choose to depict. And you are depicting a former manufacturing plant, a possibly indigent person walking across a vacant lot, and you are entitling it The Commute. So there's an implication of a situation there. I mean, it's not a political reading, but it does. You are describing kind of a point of view.
Absolutely. Down here, the other side of the tracks is the other side of the tracks, and that's where he's coming from, and he's going to work. So there's definitely something to say there.
Right now, one of the things that I want to point out to our viewers as we go through these paintings is you are an extraordinarily good draftsman. The depiction is much brushier, much more painterly than how I put paint down. But the bones of these paintings are extraordinarily strong. Don't be fooled, ladies and gentlemen, by the seeming looseness. There's an iron skeleton to these works. So let's go on to the next one. Talk to us.
So Charleston, South Carolina, one of the great southern cities. Love to go drive around and find little spots, but I've always been, I don't know why, but I've always been drawn to shadows, especially shadows on a static surface, where you can really sense the movement. And to me, there's very little more beautiful than the light coming through some type of a palm tree, some type of a tropical tree with lots of little air holes in it. But it's hard to paint. All this stuff is hard to paint, and I think that's kind of what kind of keeps me going. It's like golf, every now and again you hit a good one,
exactly,
followed by a bunch of bad ones, but you keep chasing the good stuff. But all about the shadow.
Yes, what I like to say about in that respect is that if it wasn't a challenge, it wouldn't be a challenge. If you painted a great painting every time, then I think we'd be driven to push ourselves to do something that we can't do. We're always trying to skate right on the edge of what our competency is and then push it a little bit further so that you are having that, whoa, am I going to fall off the abyss into the abyss at any given moment? Now, this one to me is interesting because I love how you've gone about this. You have this the shadow is an explosion, off the side of this building. And that in and of itself is it's an interesting, we seldom think of the cooler area in shadow as being kind of the propulsive device of a painting, but that is what you are doing here. You're also kind of exploding the perspective in this device reminds me a little of this painting reminds me a little of Charles Newman's work. How he'll do that kind of fisheye. He does plein air paintings with a fisheye lens. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's going on here over on the right? You're distorting the picture plane a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of stretched out a little bit. I've been trying to play around with things a little bit more and feel free to experiment and move and try to figure things out. So this painting, even though it's 18 by 24, I was treating like a sketch. And so, I was moving things around. I think I moved that window a little bit, and then trying to play a little bit with, you got all these horizontals, but then you got a very few little verticals. and trying to figure out where to place those verticals, and just landed here. But there's definitely, I like a little bit of monkey business in my stuff.
Uh-huh.
I don't like, I like, things are tilted a little bit, but not so much to look, you know,
Right.
ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, that's playing that fine edge again. Now, Carolyn says that the energy in this is almost like fireworks. And
Yes.
that is, were you thinking of that while you were working?
No, that was just kind of a happy byproduct. When this was over, I just, 2.5, 3 hours, and this was, how sometimes a painting is not what you have, this vision of it in your head, and when it comes out, it's
Right.
not that, it's something else. And
Right.
sometimes that something else is good, and sometimes that something else is not so good. So
Yeah.
this one was one that I was like, well, I don't really know what I was expecting, but I like it.
Right. And now, so this was from life, this one?
No, actually, this one was not from life.
Oh, it just was like a 3 hour.
Yeah, this was a 3 hour, just trying to keep that alla prima looseness in the studio. I get so bored working on stuff for long periods of time, and sometimes we'll look at some of the larger pieces. Those take me, weeks. But I was at a point, I was spending a lot of time on an 18 by 24, and they were just losing their energy. So this one was one that I set up the monitor, and I set my watch, and I said, okay, 2 hours, go. And
Another thing I want to point out on this is, it to me is very interesting that the shadow in the upper left is very warm browns. The shadow in the lower right are they're kind of warmish blues. There's a lot of red in those blues.
Yeah.
But they're still blue, so it's
right, not as much orange and yellow.
And then in the center, it goes to neutral. So it go warm, neutral, cool. Was that a conscious play that you made, or was that something that just evolved as you were working on it?
If you look at my work, it's something that I like to find in nature, and it's something that I enjoy, looking at and doing. So if you look at any of my work, and you see that in reality, I attribute this quote to Anne Blair Brown, who attributed it to maybe Sergei Bongart, but or I don't even know who it was. But don't paint the way a thing is, paint the way it changes.
Mm-hmm.
So even though this thing is a shadow, how does it change? It maybe changes a little bit light to dark, but where the real change is a warm to cool shift. And
Right.
I love that. I love that.
And you're playing, there's a compound game that you're playing there too, by having the bluish cast to the door below the warm shadow, and the warmish cast to the window above the cool shadow.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I'm so smart, I didn't even know it.
Yeah, that's what we do here in the art analysis business.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, that's really interesting. I really love that window on the right there, because it's very transparent. So when you look at this painting, there's a lot of push-pull in person, where a lot of the darks are kind of scraped out and left kind of thin. And trying to lay the lights on thicker is something I'm always trying to chase.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy in painting is that, thin and thick relationship.
Huh. See, that's a world I don't really traffic in.
You're all transparencies all the time.
All the time.
You're not falling for that stuff that light and color is doing to us. You're just like, forget that. I know where this is.
Exactly. Now, this reminds me a little of Shelby Keefe's stuff.
Yeah.
It's got that heightened perspective.
Yeah, she's a heroine of mine for sure.
Yeah. Big shout out to Shelby, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Shelby, wherever you are, whatever you are doing.
Medical stuff. So it's we're all rooting for you, Shelby. So talk to us a little about this one, David.
Yeah, so this is one that's based on a photograph, but was kind of done with that same timer mentality. I wanted to bust out a 30 by 40 and as quickly as I could, and not having the luxury of being on location. But this is in the infamous Woodbury, Georgia, made famous by The Walking Dead. And it's actually a real place. We used to live a couple of miles from there. But just it's it's a shame because the city's crumbling to pieces, but it's also fodder for people like us. And I just this again, it's the light is the mistress, compounded with my interest and love of asbestos siding and dereliction. Yeah, it's got it all. It's got it all.
But this is just such an enjoyment of all the angles. And oh, Betty Sue, toss that one back up on the screen. Don't mind, talk a bit on how you transition from just painting for fun to going commercial, actually selling your work to someone other than family. Okay, we'll do that in a second. We'll talk about this painting for a minute, and then we'll go to that one. But this one, you are really diving into shapes. This all those triangles you've got going on. How did you set up the composition on this? How did you decide this was how you were going to tackle it?
I can't remember exactly what I was thinking the entire time, but I do know that I really like this point of view, and it's one that I use a lot. You can tell if I've been working from a photo reference sometimes because I'll put that camera almost on the ground. And I used to do that a lot, and I kind of got away from it because I was like, oh, everybody knows you're painting from a picture. But there's, I think what I need to do is sit down on the ground when I paint, and really do that. But and you got a little bit of 3-point perspective in there. There's a snippet of 2-point perspective in there, and the story is that triangle of light, that red and pink and the green meet right there, and that's it's all about just how the light's falling across that form.
Right.
That form can be anything. It could be a tin can. It could be a trash can. I do not care.
Right. Well, we have the nominal. One thing I've talked about in these reasonably fine art talks is we have our nominal subject matter, which is kind of the right objects that we as painters are attracted to, but they are a device for climbing into an abstraction.
Yes.
That we are not, after a certain point, we are not painting the house anymore. We are painting the angles, the way the light is hitting on those angles. But the idea of the house and being attracted to you said you have a terminal case of nostalgia. I think I read in one of your interviews that being attracted to the house is what initially draws you to the composition, and then you climb into the composition.
Yeah, to me, it's almost my lizard brain tells me something. I might be driving. This was one of those situations. I was just driving. I was looking, but I wasn't thinking about this spot. And when I saw it, I knew. But what that was telling me was that all of those abstract shapes that are created by that structure and by the light falling across it were firing on all cylinders.
Well, it's a wonderful piece. I'm going to keep going with the slideshow, and we'll do John's question about the transitioning. We'll do that at the end.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Talk to us of this one.
All right, this is very recent. This is kind of fresh off the easel, and this was our bathroom before our bathroom was demoed.
I was wondering because it looks far too finished to be a demo painting done at a class.
Yeah, I think
that's what the demo refers to. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, demolition. But when we recently purchased a house and we're renovating it, and we loved the bathrooms, but some of the bathrooms had to go. And so this is an homage to one of our bathrooms that is gonna get delicately demoed.
And now it looks wonderful to me, all that tile work and stuff. I love it. What's gonna happen to it?
Well, one of these, you're looking through one door, kind of at another door on the left. Those doors are going to be lined up, and then we're going to have a closet on the left and another closet on the right. And the new bathroom will be through that other door.
All right.
We did all the tile work in there. Some of those little bits are really dark gray, and we used that color to inspire the trim color in the house.
All right.
We'll still have some of that around.
There's still some aesthetic at play here.
Yeah, and we left one of those bathrooms just like that.
All right. All right. So, okay. So enough about the actual object. Let's talk about the painting a little bit. So
Yes.
this is one of your more recent pieces.
Yeah, this is pretty new.
Okay, and again, we've got the warm reflected light, and we've got the cool reflected light thing going on,
Yep.
with the neutrals in the center again. Your gray greens in the upper center of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this really kind of ethereal glow on the door on the left. That blue cast, that is reflected light coming off of a window to the left.
Yeah, there's a high window up there. I don't remember if this was on an overcast day, but the sun wasn't shining directly, so you had this great sense of the light coming in from the outside, and then the warmth of the light in the room that the viewer is standing in. So yeah, another nice mix of warm and cool together.
Now, this is just a remarkable painting. The more I look at it, at first you say, okay, oh, cool bathroom. And then you get into looking at the painting. And the more I stare at it, the color, the subtlety and nuance of color that you've got going on in there is breathtaking. And the deliciousness of your shapes, the light hitting the porcelain on the inside of the sink, that shape is so good. And the way you just mark that corner, that beveled corner on the left on the sink, so good, so good. You're simultaneously managing to make stuff look loose, and yet the drawing is so spot on.
Well, that's what keeps me going at it. I want there to be, a semblance of good structure under there, but I really love a loose painting. So, how do you get, strict principles and, loose painting all at the same time?
Are you currently doing much from life, or are you mostly doing studio stuff from?
Right. The past 2 weeks, I'm just I did the Forgotten Coast where I saw you. I did the quick draw down there, and then it just gave me the taste for being outdoors and how much I missed being outside. I'm all caught up being here, running the gallery and chasing the kids around. I've forgotten how wonderful it is to paint from life. So
Right.
I'm doing a lot of still life right now, and just trying to enjoy painting from life, but maybe just not being outdoors
Uh-huh.
more so than ever, because I really do get tired of, painting from photos. And I've been doing that for the past 2 or 3 years, or just stuck at home,
Right.
not able to do a whole lot,
Yeah. Now this one, speaking of from life, this is probably a studio piece, but it was inspired by being
Yeah.
out in Apalachicola, because
That
it's
is
36
correct.
by 48, which would be one whale of a large plein air painting.
Yeah, that would be really big outdoors. I love the idea of doing bigger stuff outdoors, and I'm a big fan of, that Kyle Buckland kid. He
Mhm.
came down here to teach and really lit a fire under me that, you can do this outdoors if you really want to. But this painting would be completely different. It would be, this painting was done over several sessions, and but I did have some really great color reference from 2 or 3 pieces done on location.
So tell us a little about this one.
Yeah, this is one of the old oyster houses down there, and it is certainly no more.
Right.
Um,
It's one of the ones in East Point, right?
yeah, yep. It was kind of in that lot where those guys used to take off from early in the mornings. They would park all their oyster boats and kind of launch from there. And I think a lot of that is gone. It's just a parking lot now. But this was been falling down ever since I started coming down there. So I'd always paid attention to it. And I've painted it several times, a couple of different years. But, just this was before Hurricane Michael. It was on its last leg. But yeah, it was just so much fun. I like that tunnel, where you're looking. And it's the same thing with an alley. You've got this automatic, one point perspective that's kind of built in, but instead of it, coming out, it's pulling you in. And that's a design I enjoy. But this building was it had everything in it I love, really light lights, really dark darks, lots of drama, some nice diagonals. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Well, the thing I see references to Hopper, that house by the ocean, I think it's called,
Yep.
where the door is open and you can see the if you walked out the door, you'd end up in the drink. This is sort of the same. Um,
Yeah.
and I also really like how it's almost like looking at a movie, like a movie screen. The water has that the water and sky and back of at the end of the painting, at the far end of the painting, you are seeing it like you would see a movie screen, and like a movie screen, it is where the light is in this image. I also like how, again, you are playing. Look, ladies and gentlemen, at how he is playing with the lines. You're going, that darkest dark goes from the lower left to the right, going up a little. Then you've got the shadows slicing across, going up. The beams are at even a greater angle, with the perspective going down to point the correct way. It's opposite on my screen, so the perspective going that way. Then what that succeeds in doing is, when we look at the horizon line between the water and the sky, is that straight or is that at a very slight angle, David?
I'm pretty sure that the horizon line is straight and everything else is crooked.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that.
It looks like a little Mark Rothko painting back there.
Yeah. It's it is a Mark Rothko Hopper mashup you got going on there, David. It's great. Also, I love that little smack of uncomplicated warm light in the dark darks in the foreground. That really works nicely.
That's a lot of fun. Those little subtle things that are hiding in there that you might not notice in the beginning.
Yeah. Gosh, this is so good. I hate you.
Thank you. That's a compliment. Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
I hate you too.
in our world, that is a very high compliment. Hate you. I could look at that for ages. Are these available, David? Are these available?
Some of them are. This one's gone. This one left about 6 or 8 months ago, and I was really sad to see it go.
Yeah, but in another way, you must have been happy to see it go.
Yeah, the people that bought it, that's the joy of having a gallery with your own stuff in it. They came back to see this painting 2 or 3 times, and they really loved it, and they really wanted it. And every time they came back, they said they fell more and more in love, and that makes it a little bit easier to let go of one of your babies like that.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that with your children. So now this one is 60 by 60. That's big, David.
That's a monster. Yeah.
Talk to us.
So, Dawn Whitelaw had a great video that came out, and before the video, I'd heard her talking about how she'd worked from a sketch up to a larger painting, and of course, I'd seen people do that. Scott Christensen, of course, famously, does the smaller plein air paintings, and then he'll use those to inspire larger pieces. It was really interesting for me to see how Dawn Whitelaw was doing it, and she would do these little bitty, little 2 by 2 inch paintings in her sketchbook with oil, and then those would actually inspire her larger paintings. So she wouldn't look at a photo reference, nor would she look at the screen. She would just work off of this little abstract piece, and I thought that was so cool. Of course, I could never do that in a million years. So my version was, well, what if I did little gouache paintings? And then the ones that really were firing on all cylinders were the ones that I explored larger. And so this one was inspired by a little 6 inch by 6 inch gouache painting. That was kind of funky like the other ones, a little bit tilted, a little bit not quite right. And tried to use that as much as I could to make something bigger.
And is this a recent one?
About a year old. I think
Okay.
I finished this last fall.
And again, there's a lot of abstraction in this. I mean, so much of what this is the discrete blocks of light and color, you know, and it's nominally a house, and you are playing with those all the clapboards, you know,
Mhm.
pulling us in, but the reflected light on the asphalt or the concrete pad in the front, that's very important component.
Yeah,
I think
that's kind of the story. Is it's really just all about the reflected light in this piece.
yeah,
You know, it's really hard to, you know, what you can do on a 6 by 6 inch. You can fix things that are wrong really easily. You know, and on a bigger piece, sometimes you lose your ability to see those things, and that got really complicated.
uh-huh.
You
And
know, looking at
when you're working that large, are you working with correspondingly larger brushes?
no, I am working with longer brushes, you know, so I've got, you know, these monsters by Rosemary and Company that are, you know, 2.5 feet long. And this is like a number 10 or a number 12 maybe. So it's really not that much bigger, but you're back further and you can really see what each brush stroke, what kind of relationship it has to what's around it, where you couldn't see it if you were, you know,
Right.
up close. So to be able to stand back, you know, there's definitely more distance, but I wouldn't say the tools were too much bigger, just
Interesting.
longer.
Right, right, right. Interesting. I I have some of those long rosemary brushes, but for me, the corresponding they really lend themselves to a painterly approach.
Yes, there's no way to get any precision with those at all.
Yeah,
And you've seen this big pink piece that I have here that's like 6 feet by 7 feet. Um, excuse me. And I did that whole painting with that same brush, but I loved it because it was so painterly.
right,
You know, from 20 feet away, it just looks amazing, and then you get closer and closer, and it is brush mark next to brush mark next to brush mark.
right. It ends up looking like a de Kooning up close.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's what I love.
yep, no, that's one of the remarkable things about your work. Talk to us about this one, 30 by 40.
Yep, this is another one of those a la prima, you know, 2.5, 3 hour deals. This is a scene here in Newnan that I've painted several times on location. And, you know, that morning, well, morning or evening light, this just happens to be morning light on a white surface is like, to me, the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So a lot of people stare at a sunset. I want to stare away from the sunset, where that you can really see the temperature of that light. And I love that morning or evening light on a white surface.
Yeah, this is just a beautiful, beautiful work, and the again the drawing is so darn good. And then what you've done with the deliciousness of the paint stretched across that armature, it's just extraordinary. The and of course the well, there's the initial deliciousness of the brick building on the left that is in the color, you know, in the recognizable color world of brick, and the way you've got the light hitting the plane facing us being, you know, of greater intensity than the light on the side. But then it moves in, and it's the corresponding light and shadow on the brick building on the right. But then you move into the culmination, which is the yellow light against the white surface, and then the shadow that the other building is casting. Oh, Carolyn is curious. David, cad yellow, Naples yellow?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit. I don't have very many yellows on my palette. I think this is a lot of cadmium yellow and some cadmium orange, and it looks like I might have been flirting with Indian yellow.
Indian yellow is super, super transparent.
Super transparent, but nothing is warmer than that color.
Lovely stuff.
So I think I had some of that. I also use yellow ochre a lot as a color to kind of mute down anything that's too active. So there's probably some of that in there too.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it looks like yellow ochre is kind of how you're doing the top of the white.
Yeah, yeah. I love to use yellow ochre. It's a great medium value, and you can warm it up, you can cool it off. It's just kind of nice all the way in. But yeah, I try to stay away from as many of the cadmiums as I can.
Yeah, right. For health reasons.
Yeah, I just don't want to overexpose myself to too much of that stuff. I smoked for years. I painted houses for years.
Right.
And
old crack for years.
Oh yeah, and the crack. I forgot about the crack.
So Sherry says she agrees about looking away from the sunset to the light that it's casting on its surfaces. The golden glow is hard to capture, and you've succeeded. Well, and one of the devices you're using there on the building, the shadow cast by the other building, is the Diebenkorn trick of outlining. You've got that kind of salmon pink outline between the bright yellow and the blue.
Yeah.
And that also reminds me of, we did a program on travel posters, railroad travel posters of the early 20th century. And the color world that you've got going there is so close to one of Leslie Reagan, who was one of the great
cool
commercial railroad artists. It really looks like a Leslie Reagan there.
I'll have to check that out.
You're using a bunch of tricks in that with the outline of the halo.
Yeah, I love that transitional line from the shadow into the light, and you get that little pop of saturation. I mean, it's elusive. Sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's a saturation. But all I know is that when I do that, it looks more real than just button two colors up to themselves.
Right. I want to do the final slide I've got is a close up of that.
Nice.
It's just to me that is such magnificent. It's not the most dramatic part of the painting that we're looking at there, but the things I wanted to point out to people are that outline, the way you have reduced the porches, the tenement porches on the back of the building on the right, just these abstract brush strokes. How up at the top, against the bright yellow, you've got it as a orangey ochre, and then when you get into the shadow area, there's the continuity of brush stroke, but I don't even know what color. What color is the tenement porch? What is your mixture there? Is it your yellow ochre with some purples, or what do you got?
Yeah. I think I love real burnt sienna. Most burnt siennas are, if you look at the tube, it's actually a synthetic iron oxide. But Michael Harding's is, actual, dirt from sienna.
Right.
So it's a really light red. It's a warm red, and it's kind of opaque, but not really. But it's kind of weak. But I love to infuse it with other things. I use a pale violet that's kind of a pre-mixed color that's a dioxazine violet and white mixed together. But it's got a little red in it. It's kind of grayed off a little bit. So definitely playing with burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and looks those paler, less saturated passages are probably that got some of that pale violet mixed in there.
Fantastic work. Okay, I'm going to go having big heads again.
Hey.
So you're a Michael Harding paint. You and Leon Holmes.
Yeah, he got me that gig.
Yeah. So talk a little about the Michael Harding ethos.
Yeah. So
he like travels around behind sheep and picks up their dung in order to expose lead to it to make his sheep dung lead.
He's the real deal. He still makes lead paint like you're talking about. and he just doesn't mess with the pigments any, which is kind of what I like. There's no monkey business going on in there. His paints are pure pigment. Everybody gets pigment from the same sources. The manufacturers just mess with them a little bit differently. He uses a linseed oil mix in his, and that's it. So there's some people put wax, some people put marble dust. His paint doesn't have any of that. So it's strong, it's potent, but like his cadmiums, they stay wet on my palette for weeks, literally for weeks. But they're strong, and I don't feel like I waste nearly as much paint as I did. So they're not cheap, but I'm not looking to save a buck. I'm looking to use the most beautiful, best product I can find to express myself.
They're extraordinary paints, and he's a great guy. Anytime you want to feel like you're talking to a member of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, he's a good person to hang out with.
I see the question about the watercolors, and that's still a mystery. I've been doing some pen and inks and watercolor myself, and I saw him at the Forgotten Coast, and I was like, so when am I going to get my little watercolor set?
And so he's supposedly coming out with watercolors?
He's got it together. They haven't launched them quite yet, but he has manufactured some watercolors. And as a person that likes to use gouache too, I'm interested in just kind of using them almost like that to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully soon those will be coming out.
Okay. So
Kwang Ho has them. Of course he does. He's Kwang Ho.
So let's go back to that question about where was that? Betty Sue, are you still there? Yeah. How do you transition? Painting
transition. So, I kind of found myself in a weird spot. I had a daytime job that I loved. And, at some point in time, the painting started to take over, and I was becoming more and more successful. And when I say successful in this arena, I'm meaning I was selling more paintings. And suddenly I had this idea that, man, I sure would love to move from being a school teacher to painting full time, because I knew that I could paint. I knew that I could do it. And it was something I really wanted to do. But I also had the luxury of having a day job while I was trying to make that transition. So I kind of started with Daily Painters a little bit. I was never one of their main people, but I sold enough paintings on Daily Painters. I had a blog, and so I had some money coming in, and then I kind of found, the plein air circuit, and I could just kind of stick my toe in whenever I needed to and kind of keep my name in there. But the other luxury I had was not having any children at that point in time. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So it was a big jump, but if it's not easy, that, Charlie, too. It's just, I don't drive a Ferrari, I don't live in a mansion, we live very simply, but honestly, I just want to paint. So whatever I have to do to kind of stay in the paint is what I'm going to do. So I slowly kind of weaned myself off of teaching, and our big catalyst at our house was when we had my son. My wife, you've met my lovely wife, Julie, the doctor. She's an educational psychologist, and she's got a great job and has summers off. And so she makes a consistent living, whereas, painting sales, are like that. And sometimes you go months without selling a painting sometimes, and that's what we try to avoid. But, I would say, take it easy. Take it slow, and if I were a single man, I would be living in my Volkswagen van, driving around the country, trying to use the internet to sell my paintings. But, I've got a family, I've got 2 young kids, and I'm lucky to have a gallery here in this town. And so I'm planted here and doing everything I can do to kind of make it happen here at home.
Let's use that as the transition to basically the final set of questions, which are, you've been working with Meredith Wilson, is it, at Three Hearts Farm?
Yes.
Which is, Meredith is a extraordinary person.
Yes.
And Three Hearts Farm is a beautiful property, and it's right near you.
Yep.
So you're working with her to do some workshops there, and then you also teach around the country some. What do
Yeah.
what do you got going on if people wish to study with the wonder that is Boyd?
If you dare, if you dare. So yeah, we're COVID put a lot of things on hold for us at the farm. We were going to have our banner year in 2020 as far as having people come. You've come to teach a sold out workshop at our place, but we don't make a whole lot of money off of it. We just want to try to raise the level as much as we can. And so this year we've only got 3 workshops going on. We've got your friend Stephanie Birdsell coming here in the next couple of 3 weeks. Actually, she's going to do a 5-day workshop, painting flower. Yep. Peonies will be in bloom around here. And then I'm going to teach a little color theory workshop in June. And that's kind of a 4 or 5 day, very, taking the color charts and basically taking people's money and making them do the color charts right in front of me.
Well, that's the only way to do them.
Yeah, I mean, people are masochists, but they would rather give you money and have you do it than do it themselves.
Right. Well, it is something that it's like how I feel about doing my physical therapy. I should really do it, and I really don't want to do it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and when I teach that workshop, I make myself do it again too. And then we're going to have a day where you take it outside and actually use them for what they're supposed to be used for. And then we've got the charming Tiffany Mang coming back to teach her gouache stuff. I think that's in September. So we kind of got a full spectrum of things going on at the farm. And then I'm kind of keeping it close as far as workshops are concerned. If a museum ever asks me to come and teach, my rule is to say yes, please. So the Booth Western Museum in Cartersville, Georgia, I'm teaching, shockingly enough, the urban still life later this summer. And then they also have a new museum called the Savoy Automobile Museum that they just opened. And they've invited me to come up and teach a 2-day drawing and painting cars on location at their new museum.
Fantastic. Well, I would urge anyone who's looking for an extraordinary learning experience to look into David's stuff. And if anyone is down in the leafy suburbs of, the leafy exurbs, or the slightly outside of the expanse of Atlanta, but if you're passing through Newnan or anywhere near Newnan, you really should stop by David's gallery.
Come knock on my basement door. I'm always there.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. You're an inspiration. Your work is just stunningly good. So.
Well, I've hated you since the first time I saw your work, and to be your roommate at the Forgotten Coast was awesome. And second to that, you inviting me on this podcast, that'll get me through some sleepless nights.
Very good. All right.
Charlie Hunter wanted me.
Exactly. So stick around after I end the broadcast. We'll chat a little bit more.
Yes, sir.
But everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, if you want the Richard Schmidt's Alla Prima for a month, you just comment and we'll choose one of you and it'll go off. And everybody, thanks so much for joining us. David, thanks again. It's been great. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.